Thank you so much, Zubeni, for joining us today in our talk. Uh, and it is a wonderful opportunity to be able to speak to you, even though it is online like this due to the pandemic. Uh, for our viewers and for everyone who would like to know a bit more about Zubeni Lotha is a photographer from northeastern part of India in a state called Nagaland. Her main focus of work is in Nagaland, and her area of focus is on image representations and social documentary. Her works include Dimapur 797112, How Do I Look, and Looking Out at a Tree Again, which was funded by the India Foundation for the Arts, which is looking into the history of photography practice in Nagaland by analyzing the photographs of Christoph von Führer Hammendorf. Zubeni has also contributed to a book by Zubaan entitled Centerpiece, New Writing and Art from the Northeast India. She has also exhibited her work solo and in group exhibitions. Presently, she is working as co-curator with the Berlin Museum on a Naga collection for an exhibition in Berlin in 2021 by the Humboldt Forum. Zubeni, thank you once again for joining us. Zubeni, your photographs have been published extensively in many media houses, including Outlook, Caravan, as well as outside India, with house media publishing houses like New York Times and Random House. You have also displayed them in numerous exhibitions. You are also a consultant photographer with the United Nations Development Program (UNDP). Let me ask the most obvious question, something which everyone must be asking you. What made you step into the world of photography? Why did you choose images to tell your story, your vision?
As a child, I always wanted to actually either paint or write a story. But I was led into this direction by my dad, who told me a very interesting story about a photojournalist he met. And he was a wonderful storyteller. So I really got into the whole adventure of the photojournalist. But as the more I grew up, I realized writing was not really my strength, or I wasn't really keen too much on writing, but I loved images, photographs, paintings, just visuals. So ultimately, that's how I got into. When I started photography, it was very, very, very difficult because I had no one to guide me, no mentor, no any photographers around me, nor had I seen too many works of photographers. Obviously, the obvious ones were Raghurai and, you know, the senior most photographers of India. Apart from that, there really wasn't any guidance on photography, but I joined MCRC, Mass Communications Research Center, Masters in Communications, because they had a 1 year course on 1 year syllabus on photography in the first year. And that's why I joined the master's course there. And I learned quite a few things there, and it made me realize that, yeah, I really do want to get into photography rather than a lot of my friends got into video making, filmmaking, and all of that, documentary. But I realized that really was not the path that I wanted to go to, because I really just wanted to tell a story or tell something from my perspective. And yeah, that's what led me into photography. So it's been quite a journey in that sense.
Apart from the formal training that you had at Jamia MCRC, was there any kind of other training that you underwent, maybe an internship or anything like that?
No, after my MA course in Jamia, I didn't pursue any kind of internship, because the all the internships, or all the ones that my friends were getting into, were mostly into video and production houses and televisions and things like that. Get into that. I just wanted. I was actually looking for a photographer or somebody who I could work under, who would kind of be a mentor, help me, because I really didn't have. And I realized when I was in MCRC, I couldn't articulate it then, but I realized that there was more to just taking a photograph. It was a language of photography that I really wanted to learn, and I just couldn't find anyone who would point me in the right direction. so what I did was I ended up doing a lot of other things besides photography, besides anything to do with visuals. In fact, I got into fashion a bit with my friend. And then in those years, what I did was I just started looking at photographs. I just started looking at photographs, kind of self-training myself. I think I sort of self-trained myself a bit to just look at images. And and after a few years, after some time of all of that struggle and things like that, I started to have conversations with. I have a really good friend who is, good friends, I would say, who really helped me in developing the mind that I wanted to develop or pursue, the kind of thoughts that I wanted to pursue. So my conversations with them actually really opened up a new way of looking and thinking. And then I started looking at not only photographs, but a lot of paintings, started attending a lot of music, classical music concerts in Delhi, because you always have those lovely winter music, classical music for free, right? And paintings, art exhibitions. So that was my a way of training myself, I suppose. But yeah, that's so no internship of any kind. I did work with Pablo Bartolomeo for 6 months. Yeah, so that's actually the only formal job that I've had apart from all the other independent or freelance work that I did. Yeah.
When you see a picture, like a scene before you, how do you decide how and why you capture an image? Like the process of seeing a scene before you and deciding which parts of the scene goes into the frame of your photography. How to make it speak without words? How do you decide that?
I think so. Yeah, this is where I actually, when with my photographs, I don't say photographs so much. I say images, because what I do is before the action, I always do a lot of research. I visit the places, I meet the people around there, I talk to them, or I just look at the place. And in my head, I'm constantly revisiting that place. I'm constantly having conversations within myself about the place, the people, what I'm thinking, how to engage with that place. So it actually, the thinking process takes much longer than taking a photo. So when I go to the place to take a photo, it becomes much, I know exactly what I want to take, because I look at a scene and I know what that scene or that particular picture or that particular visual is to me, and how I want to represent it to the people. So that's process. Is actually the other way around. Like, I don't take a photograph and look at it and try and relate to it, but I've already related in my mind through my research and all of that, and then I take a photo after all of that is done. So the photo is kind of the end product of my thought process.
It sounds wonderful and a lot of hard work, in fact. Jubin, you grew up in Nagaland, and after a brief stint of staying outside Nagaland, now you are back in Nagaland. Can you please tell us a bit of your childhood and how it shaped you to the person and the artist that you are?
I don't know if I'm an artist, but yeah, I grew up. I had a wonderful childhood because it was really. I mean, I see the kids around nowadays, and I feel a bit bad because when in my childhood, during my times, it was really wild. Wild in the sense, we were just running around wild out on the street. There were no vehicles, very few vehicles, no fear of anything. So we really had a very with the environment. We kind of grew up with the environment, outside, outdoors all the time. But then I guess there were always tensions of the Naga independent movement, the Naga struggle, political struggle. So I guess that is one of the reasons why my parents wanted us to leave and go to another, where they felt much more secure, I suppose, a much more secure place to study. So when I was 8 years, I think, when they sent me to a hostel in Shillong. So my most impressionable years were in Shillong. Actually, I grew up in a hostel. But after a few years there, I came back in my teens back to Dimapur. And I mean, teenage is not the best time to be changing places. So I had a very tough time trying to adjust here, trying to, and befriend, make new friends. I was here for about 3-4 years before I passed out, and I went back to, I went to Chennai for my higher secondary, for my higher 11, 12. Then from there on, I went to Delhi. So my childhood actually in Dimapur has been a very short period, interrupted by all these moving here and there, changing schools and all that. How that has influenced me, affected me, it's actually Delhi that has made me who I am. I don't know if the other questions relate to that. I just want to mention it here. In Delhi, what happened was I had a major culture shock. I think I was in Chennai before Delhi, but I didn't have such a massive culture shock as the one that I got in Delhi. And I joined my Bachelor of Arts Sociology. And when I was in sociology, doing my first year of sociology, the book the book that we were given to read or part of the syllabus was called The Naked Nagas by Heimendorf. And that book really, I must say, it shocked the hell out of me, because that was the first time I was actually looking at the Nagas. It's very strange because I never saw myself as the way that book portrayed the Nagas. And for me, that was like the biggest shock. And that stayed with me even today. I think that's one of the influences. And the other one is my time in Delhi. I really faced a lot of, I'm sure we all do, stereotypes. And I don't know if I can say it's racism, but definitely stereotyping. And that led me to question a lot about my identity. So yeah, those are the two influences actually which has had a major impact on why I made the decision to focus on Nagaland or the Nagas as a theme or study for my photographs. Yeah.
So for a lot of us, the distance away from our homeland is also an opportunity to look at it with new eyes and new understanding. How did the distance from Nagaland make you feel? How are your memories of Nagaland reflected in your creative work? Did it make you look at Nagaland? You mentioned that you were like you had a chance to look at Hammondorf's book Naked Nagas. So was that the only way that you started looking at it? Because for a lot of studies on the people of the Northeast, whether it is on the Métis, the Nagas, or the Mizo, is always authoritative books which are mentioned in almost all academic research is books done by people from outside of our place. So, do you think this is because I'm clubbing a lot of questions together in one? Do you think that this relooking at ourselves or looking at ourselves and then having to refer at a study of ourselves being done by others, is it because we as a people lack the vision to look at ourselves properly that we have to refer to others? So how do you resist this kind of understanding? I hope I'm making sense.
No, very interesting question. I like this. I like that you asked about how we look at our hometowns, our places from afar, because that was one of the reasons why my first work was actually came out of that. Dimapur 797112 is a very, it's also the name I chose because when I was in a hostel, we were always made to write letters home. And every once a week we would write a letter, and I never forgot my pin code because pin code was very important at that time. There were no couriers. It was always postman's 797112. I mean, I just that was one thing that really stuck with me, and that's why the first project I did, I said I have to give it this name, although it's very cliched. But I was like, no, I really need to use this pin code because of that. And that first work was actually on memories of my hometown. And staying in Delhi, somehow I actually realized that I had romanticized Dimapur so much in my mind. Because all the times that I came back home during those stays in Dimapur for my vacations, I would just come home, just stay in the house for a month or so, just be with the family. And that's it. I hardly interacted. I hardly went out. There wasn't much interaction. It was just home stay with the family, and that's it. So in my mind, the only imaginations and the only thought of Dimapur was my childhood years. And those years I really, even now I feel very nostalgic about those years. And I had romanticized it so much that the first project that I said, okay, I'm going to start taking photographs now, and I will start on the project, was actually memories of my hometown. And I thought when I came back and took photographs, I was in Delhi at that time. When I came back home and took photographs, I thought it was just going to be very simple. Just revisiting my old places, the people that I knew, just talk to them. But I realized that actually, I also had a lot of stereotypical notions about this town. And the more I started looking at the town and started taking photographs, I had to actually delve into memories which I had kind of glossed over. I, some memories that I did not want to think about. Because if I look back now at my childhood, yeah, my growing years, maybe when I was 4, 5, those were wonderful years. But the reason why I was sent to the hostel and was also, there was a reason for that. The reason why I never left my home during my vacations, there was a reason for that. And it all had to do with a lot of, because there was a lot of tension. The armed struggle there was a lot of tension, a lot of violence was happening. I remember my dad would always lock our gates by 2 in the afternoon, 3 in the afternoon, so we weren't allowed to go out. And that's the reason why we just kind of stayed stuck in the house. I was sent to the hostel and made to study outside and encouraged to stay outside because of all these tensions, political tensions in our hometown. There were a lot of killings. I know a lot of people who died by violent means, like getting shot, and also a high increase in alcoholics and drug addiction. A lot of families were affected with that. So death was everywhere, actually. But all of these things, I kind of just, I don't know. Memories have a very strange way. We think that our memories are real, and we, in our memories, it's what we remember is always the truth, or the truth of the past, but it's actually not. I realized through my project that memories can play a lot of tricks. We tend to remember the good memories. We always kind of try and forget the inconvenient, or the unpleasant memories. So yeah, that really opened my eyes up, and also opened my eyes to my own stereotypes and notions about this place. And also, certain, because culturally we are very different. But staying in Delhi, I came back and I was like, yeah, with a camera in my hand, going on the street, taking photographs. No, people here are they're just not going to react to that like in a very positive way. You think that you come from the big city and you know everything. No, actually. So I had a lot of reorientation to do, actually, through that project. That's why I love it, because it just made me realize that, you know, we think we know, but we don't know till we are in that place. We think what we know is better, but it's not, because it's all contextual, it's all cultural, right? So yeah, I really love that project because of that. And I keep remembering it because it kind of helps me to stay a bit grounded, I think. to remember of my experiences of taking those photographs. So yeah, that was my experience with my hometown and how I viewed it from afar. As for the other questions, how, yeah, I don't know why we give so much importance to books written by scholars from outside anthropology. And Nagas are one prime example because, and I chose Heimendorf because he was the first anthropologist to do a book on the Nagas. And of course, he did it on, and the Nagas are not just, it's just not Nagas. We are a collection of many different communities and groups of people. And all communities have very different tradition, culture. There are variations and differences, even though we may look the same. But when Heimendorf wrote that book for his PhD thesis, I think, he went to the Cognac region. He lived there for a year. And he just, the name of the book, the cover was like The Naked Nagas. And that book, I don't know, it has, and many anthropologists after that has followed in that footstep, I feel. And they still tend to, exoticize us a bit. The photographs that they put in their scholarly, academically researched books are always the same. Um, I don't know what it is about that. I guess it's the difference. I mean, I don't know what they find so fascinating about it. But for what I've realized, especially when I was doing my project, the IFA project, because I went to these places, what I realized was it has had a very, I don't know if negative is the word, but some kind of an effect on the people, because people are also just kind of reproducing that same narrative over and over. They look at those images and they remember those images or whatever, and they just kind of try and reproduce that, thinking that that is authentic, thinking that because it's the past, it must be the truth. Or I don't know, it's a very strange kind of a cycle. So I feel that it maybe that contributes to us not being able to get out of looking at ourselves through that, because the images that were given to us, and that's why I say images are so strong, and I use the word image, it is a very consciously developed, created image. When I was researching Heimendorf, all the tour diaries, reading his diaries, I could see that the photographs he took were all very consciously created, because they were made by asking people to dress up a certain way, stand, behave, act, dance a certain way, and take those images. And those were the images that were published, and those are the images that keeps getting published. So that has made a big impact even on the local people. And they think that, because it's from the past, because not knowing what was actually happening in the mind of the photographer or what was happening in the background, not knowing all of that, they're just looking at the image and thinking it is authentic. And that is how they must be. They must represent themselves or talk about themselves. I mean, that was my experience when I was taking my photographs. So I cannot speak for every region, every person, every area. But from my experience, that's what I felt, and this, yeah, that's one. And the other, but on the other hand, people also like to, because we don't have individual, we are not, our societies are not so developed or progressed on individual identity. We are very a community identity kind of a group of people, no? So every identity that they draw themselves, the identities that they draw on, all comes from community things. Like, let's say, the costumes, which is also a community, like the shawls, the harvest dance songs. So I don't know. It's very complex actually. This how we look at ourselves. This is a very complex, and this is one of the reasons why it's very very difficult to take photographs as representative of people, because it's much more complicated than what we think it is.
Thank you, Zubeni, for your for sharing us your insights and your feelings on this topic so honestly and so frankly. And going further from uh, your concept of how are we as a community, like the people from the Northeast, we have this idea that people who are coming from outside have much more understanding about ourselves, and we feel that maybe we should uh, go by their books rather than listen to what our elders and our people have to say. So how do you I mean, you have taken this whole discussion about constructed identities and self-representation in your next work also, How Do I Look, your series of images. Can you tell us a bit more about this series, How Do I Look?
I think it's because I think it's the oral tradition that was passed down to us, that somehow, because that somehow lends that's authentic enough, or it's not true enough, because nothing is written. And when this new Western education, or this new, this concept was given to us, we just kind of latched onto it and we said, yes, this is modernity, this is progress, this is are behind it. And the people who are ahead are the colonial masters, and all the ones that have gone before us. And they're coming and teaching us, and they're telling us things. And in the Naga context, we have been Christianized in a way that we were made to feel ashamed of tradition, our culture, our costumes, of the way we look. So all of that has actually contributed to us thinking that we are in a way inferior in intellect. I think, okay, that is just my observation, and also for my personal experience, because even now I feel a bit hesitant, just to like get up and speak authoritatively. Whereas people from outside, they have no qualms about just getting up and speaking about us with so much authority that we are put on the back foot, and we're like, it it's very yeah. But we must, I think, for my generation, which is older than the present generation, we must just be courageous enough and know that no, what we are speaking is our voice, is is the true voice. It's our experience. We are living it. We are living the culture. We are living the reality and everything that we face around us. So we should be able to voice that out without any fear, without any shame, or without any hesitation. For the younger generation, I think they have no qualms. It is also to do with the technology, social media. They are very much engaged with the world. They know what is going on around them. So I see much more hope in the younger generation that they will take this forward, what we couldn't, or what we are trying to. So yeah, that's just my opinion. And to a large extent, yeah, social media has really opened up the world for everyone. And we see that, what we think, or we thought, oh, it's only the educated West that knows everything. But if you look at them now, I think they're also in quite a shitty situation. I think they also don't know everything that we think they knew. So we just have, and thank God for social media for opening up all these avenues of, research, understanding, readings. So yeah, I think we should just take hold of this opportunity to speak out, to say, but not just blindly, but we should also, with equal depth of research, reasoning, and not just depending on some, because yeah, myths, legends, folklores has been given to us, but how much is that reality, and no, how much is that factual? We should also be able to judge that, no? I think because we are living in an age of reason, I don't think we are living in times of superstition and legends and folklores. So we should be able to, and we have a lot of educated people, a lot of yeah, highly educated scholars, academicians, practitioners of all in all fields. So we should be able to reason it out within ourselves, not be afraid to look at our own shortcomings, at our own mistakes or our own failings, and be able to speak about it truthfully, because that really helps in bringing understanding about the culture, society, not only to ourselves but even to the outside world. So I guess that's, yeah, I don't want to sound too like as if I'm giving some kind of a sermon. So yeah, I mean that's just my opinion. But the other thing is, uh, how do I look? Yes, that came out because it is my thing on culture, my questionings on culture. Uh, okay, it's a lot of many questions in that, but the main one was who decides culture, um, especially the within I look at only the Naga culture because this is the culture that I know, and it's a very patriarchal culture. It's a very patriarchal society, in spite of what it may seem like on the surface, but inside within the society, it is a very patriarchal structure. So that was just one of the questions that I was posing. Who decides the culture? Is it the state? Is it the people? And who are the who is the voice of the culture? And I feel what I was trying to say in this was, it is the men actually who have it, who decides, who gives authority, who makes all the rules and regulations, who says this is traditional, that is not traditional. But the women are actually made to bear all of that without really having a say. So you are given the weapon, but you're not given the right to. Okay, you're given not the weapon, but you're given, you're given something, but you don't have the right to use it. You're given all the privileges. Let's say education. There's no stopping. I mean, no one is saying you can't educate a girl child. The women are not stopped from anything. They're only stopped from voicing opinion where it really matters. They're only stopped from doing, having um, the power over resource. So all of that, and then they're made to be the bearers of culture and tradition without really having much say in it. So that was one of the points that I wanted, one of the questions that I wanted to bring out. And the other one was actually also looking at the Hornbill Festival in a much more critical way than, because it is also the state that decides the culture in a way. It is the state is deciding how the culture should be shown to the world or how it should be presented. And that is not the true culture. Those were some of the questions that I was trying to explore in that book.
Thank you. That is a very evocative image which you used, like women being given all the privileges. They're given the weapon, but they don't have the right to use it. So, but at the same time, women from the Northeast are always have always been at the forefront, whether it be looking after the home or work, or whether it's in peace building. But as you say, they are cultures being patriarchal in nature. There is a lot of limitations also placed on women at the same time. What is your experience being a woman photographer from Nagaland, from the Northeast? Are women photographers common in this part of the world? How many do you know of actually? Like how many women photographers in from the Northeast has come up? Has your identity, your roots, and a gender been a plus or a minus for the kind of work that you do?
No, to be honest, I don't know any women photographer from Nagaland, from Meghalaya, from Mizoram, from Manipur. Assam might have, but I don't know. I'm just naming all the states. The one person I met, and she's not even from the Northeast, but she was kind of, um, added to the Northeast list. Prashansa from Darjeeling, I think she was. So that's the only person I know. And she's also not she's not a full photographer kind of a thing. She's a photographer, filmmaker, I think. So really, I don't know anyone, to be very honest. Maybe there are, and I haven't come across. I hope there are. Yeah, I haven't heard of any yet. Maybe in the future, maybe I will. As a woman photographer, what has been my experience? Well, UNDP. Okay, my experience with UN, being a photographer with UNDP, has been very, very. It really makes you realize that yeah, you're a woman. You go to these events because UNDP is always called, like, having these events. You go to these events, and yeah, you're the only woman photographer there. Many are men, and they kind of avoid you a bit. They don't feel too comfortable. I think I don't know. They don't include you in their circle, is what I mean. They kind of leave you out a bit. That's one experience, and maybe it's because maybe it's because I'm a woman. Then yes, it has been. I don't know. Yeah, it's there has been cases where, like, when I travel to the village, I do need a guide to help me. And it's not because I'm a woman photographer, but it's because in those places, I don't speak their dialect, I don't speak their language. So I do need somebody to translate, to help me out, all of that. But when they meet me and they see that I'm a woman photographer, it's a novelty for them. And also, the only concept of photography that they understand, or photographer that they know, are from the newspapers. So for them, that's the biggest fear, that I'm going to report something bad about them in the paper. I'm going to put their photos in the paper and write something bad about them. And the other fear that I've encountered is actually quite funny. It's actually from the women. A lot of the women said, please don't put my photos on the internet for, like, bad purposes. Now, I don't know what the bad purposes they're talking about. So, but it has been difficult. It's just been, I think it's also because it's something new around here. Not many photographers, well, the kind of photographers they see are mostly photojournalists, and also from people coming from the mainland, maybe from some newspaper agency, but as a woman photographer going around trying to take the photographs that I'm taking, and because I do tell them, I explain to them what I'm doing, it's a novelty. So they are quite welcoming, although they don't feel very comfortable. Initially, they always feel a little reticent, and they're not very comfortable with taking photographs and having cameras in their face. But after a few minutes, just talking to them, making them feel a bit comfortable, just kind of, yeah, joking around with them, just being on there, just trying to, yeah, make them feel comfortable. They do open up a bit. And that's the reason why I changed my camera also, because initially I had a huge Canon 5D camera, but that's really big because then I said, no, nothing doing. I think I better, because it's very, like, it's too visible, it's too loud. Everybody can just see the camera, and they feel a bit, not scared, but they're a bit wary. They become a bit self-conscious, a bit nervous. So I changed my camera. I went on to a really small Fujifilm X100. It's really small, the camera, so they feel less intimidated. Yes, that's been my experience. Just changing the camera has made quite a difference. They think it's not very, they don't feel intimidated because it's just a small camera. So yeah, those things have, that's been my experience. It hasn't been so bad as such. Not in the field of, I think, photojournalism and that kind of feel, I think women have it much worse, maybe. Maybe the experiences are not, because it's much more competitive. It's much more like, the scenarios can be much more aggressive, I think. But in my case, I would, to large extent, my environment is much more controlled. So it hasn't been.
How did your family and extended family, I say extended family because they always have something to say. How did they react when they know come to know that you're doing photography as a living?
My mom couldn't understand it for the longest time. I think she still can't understand what I'm doing. Like, I still have to explain to her. The interview today also, I had to explain to her. Like, she's like, where's this? Why are they doing this interview? Who's doing it? Where will it go? She just, she, for her, it's just like an alien world, reality, I think. Um, my dad, when he was alive, towards the end, I mean, a year before he died or so, he did understand quite a bit. And the only thing he told me was, you're going to have a tough time because people are going to take a long time to understand. I mean, here in Nagaland, that's what he told me. But he did kind of get it. Initially, they were very, very, I mean, I won't say they were discouraging. They just couldn't understand. They're like, how are you going to? So for my dad, he thought I would be working either in a newspaper, like the normal, the usual. But when I didn't do that, and I chose what I chose to do, he, I mean, he couldn't understand. They just couldn't understand it. My extended families, when I say I'm a photographer, oh, wedding photographer. That is the only photography that they understand. And of course, you have to make money, right? I mean, you're doing a job, so you must make money. And here I am. I don't make money for months on end. It's just something that they just can't fathom. Now I think most of them have just given up asking me questions about it. To be fair, although my parents couldn't understand it, they have been very supportive in other ways. Because there have been days and months where you don't get money, you're not making any income. Financially, they have been very, very supportive, and that's been my backbone. Actually, have they not been that supportive, I think I would have given this up a long time ago, because it's not an easy path that I chose. I could have just gone into working in a newspaper as a photojournalist, joining a magazine as a photographer, but I didn't do that. I couldn't. I just couldn't do it, and I chose the most toughest part. And my parents have been very supportive, although they just, even till date, my mom just can't understand. And when she looks at my photographs, of course she can't understand. She's like, yeah, what is this tree? Like, anyone can take this tree. And the hornbill, with the hornbill, that huge hornbill head. I mean, it was a big joke for her. So things like that, but it's okay. It's a bit difficult because you don't have people to share with about your work, because if they don't understand, it's quite difficult to talk to them about your work. But it's quite, yeah, interesting to see them try to
Do you,
understand.
do you also get asked to do wedding shots for your wedding photography for your friends and relatives? I'm sure they would. Like, search for a photographer. Yeah, yeah, Zubeni, like my friend, my niece, my cousin is a photographer, so let's have her.
I did that for, yes, like you said, obligations to family members and friends. The first photograph, wedding photograph I did was for my cousin brother, and I had what do you call it? I had a manual camera, a Nikon FM2. I still remember that. I still have it. It was on film. I mean, I was using a film, black and white, obviously. I took the photograph in a very documentary style, not in the movement, a lot of moments which they're not aware of. I like it. I don't think he even kept that photo. I don't see that photograph around his. So after that, forget it. My cousin has not mentioned those photographs at all. A few photographs I did just out of obligations. People have always complained, oh, but you didn't take, like, people come to the weddings and everyone shakes hands and meets. They want a photograph of every person that they're shaking hands with. I'm like, how can that even be possible? So they're always a bit disappointed with my photographs. And so now if they ask, I just say, look, I don't do wedding photographs because I know there will be disappointment on their end, on that side. And my photographs are not, I don't Photoshop. I don't take it to work on it too much. The editing is very minimum on mine, and I'm not in the business of trying to make things look beautiful also. So it hasn't worked out. As I'm a failure as a wedding photographer, complete failure.
Uh, can you tell us a bit about your next series, Looking at the Tree Again?
So this project, looking at the tree again, came out of IFF fund. They wanted, IFK. They always look for these research programs. So before already looking at some of the Heimendorf photographs. So I started looking at the Heimendorf photographs, and then I thought, okay, let me apply for this IFA grant. And luckily I got it. And initially I thought it was going to be quite easy in a sense. I thought, I'm just going to take Heimendorf's photographs and then I'm just going to do the opposite of what he did. He took all these people with all these exotic outfits, all these costumes. I'm not going to include any of that in my photographs. I'm going to take all the modern Nagas. That was my initial idea. But working on it, doing a lot of research, I visited a few villages, not only the Cognac region where Heimendorf was, but other villages in Nagaland. And I realized, no, can't do that. Obviously, can't do that. Um, so what I did was I studied a lot of the Heimendorf. Yes, it's on a public space, then internet. So all his tour diaries, he'd written all the times that he was living in that village in the Cognac region. He'd kept a diary, which is very interesting actually. It really gives an insight the life of the people at that time and into his mind actually, what his thinking process and all that, because he's written quite a lot about it. So I kept looking at it and I realized that, yeah, of course, it's a lot of editing process in his photography. He only chose the photographs that he wanted to project. At that time, there was a lot of change going on, so because this particular place that he was in, the Cognac region, they're very close to Assam. So there's always been this trade with Assam, going down to the plain region. So they've always had this trade. So obviously, when they have these cultural encounters, it's sure to rub off. And by the time Heimendorf went into this region, people were already starting to change their attire also. Some were already starting to wear jackets, maybe trousers or shorts that they got from the plains. And not everybody was dressed in those, fully full their full traditional costumes or anything. But Heimendorf didn't like any of the new outfits, as he called them. And he would always ask people to wear their costume, behave as if it was a head hunting dance, as if, they were going on a warfare. So it was a lot of these staged photographs that he did. And what I realized in that was, even his book, The Naked Nagas, I read that book again. And it's very romanticized about tribal people living simple lives, primitive lives, um, walking around semi-naked without any, not feeling conscious about their nakedness. For him, it must have been like a great like shock, no? Shock also, and just, I mean, he must have been completely captivated by this image. And that's what he tried to portray, but it was much more than that. People had a lot of poverty. There was a lot of changes were happening at the then because British were there. There was a lot of neighboring raids, warfares happening. People were dying of hunger, maybe. A lot of people had disease, illness. Of course, he didn't portray much of that. The Naga Hills are not very. It's not a very easy terrain geographically. It's also a very difficult terrain. The weather can be, especially during the rainy season, it can be terrible because you have all these landslides. It's just horrible, and living condition must have been horrible at that time. All of that, and that was the reality that people it didn't make pretty pictures. So what I did in my photograph was I was trying to look at that, be as true as possible to the region, to the people, looking at, and Hammendorf's focus, and a lot of the anthropologists who are interested in the Nagas, their focus is on the head hunting practice, no? But much more than the head hunting practice, there were a lot of other practices. They had a lot of other belief systems. They had a lot of traditions and cultures which had nothing to do with head hunting as such, A lot of crafts, practices were happening. But none of that was recorded to any extent as I could see in their work, in his work. So I tried to look at that. I tried to look at a different narrative. So I think if you there's a picture of this huge tree. So that was taken in one of the villages, and I just recorded that tree over a period of 10 minutes in the night. It's very nice in the village because they hardly have any electricity that kind of distracts. By 7 o'clock, everyone is in their homes. They're almost going to sleep. By 9 o'clock, it's just pitch dark. So around that time, I took a photo of that particular tree, and that tree is actually been there for more than 300 years. It dies, it grows, it dies, it grows. So this present tree, they're saying it for 300. The previous one died, and this new, so it's the new tree, but it's almost 300 years. And these are the trees that in the olden times, they used to hang the enemy heads on these trees. And then under those trees, they would keep a lot of these. This particular tree I took in the Lotha region, and they used to believe in a stone that they believed were alive. I don't know what, I don't know how to say it in English, but they believe that these stones were alive, are become alive, and they birth other stones. And whoever owns the stone becomes very rich, and it's very difficult to find these stones or whatever. So at the moment, when if you go to that village, the trees there, under that tree, they have those few stones. A lot of those stones have been taken away by the British. And I actually saw those stones in a museum in Cambridge, the Pittsburgh. Is it? No, it's the Cambridge. Yeah. They have a huge Naga collection in Cambridge. And they have a lot of these stones there, okay? But in this is the only village which has a few of the stones remaining. So what I did was, I was looking at the other things that they believed in, the other practices. So, and recording that for 10 minutes, the tree for 10 minutes was my way of just kind of recording past the history, all of the history that has gone into that, into the telling of the tree, into the tree itself, the villages. So just that tree being a symbol of the history of that village. So I made a 10-minute recording of that. Then there's another image where the old man is sitting in his hut. He's a chief of his village. He's sitting in his hut, and you have that tripod just in the foreground, and he's kind of, at the back. So with that image, what I wanted, and that I wanted to do was just to explore or question the idea of, representation. What are we doing when we take image of people like that? we interfere into their lives. We kind of, we frame them in such a way that is appealing. We make them wear things. We put them in the background that is, different, exotic. But when we do that, what image and what idea of representation are we creating about them? And we always keep doing that, no? So I very much wanted to be present in these photographs, actually, me as a photographer, because my presence, the if you feel my presence, then you would know, okay, these are the photographer's ideas. It's her idea, it's her perception, it's her way of looking. That was my intention. So with the tripod being there, I think in another image I have my shadow, maybe. In another image, I think I have my reflection with the man in the mirror and my reflection. So with what I tried to do was I tried to make myself very present, just to say that, look, there is a person who's actually taking these photographs, and that person has her or his own bias, her or his own understanding. And, so it is not reality as you see, because these photographs are not representative of reality, but it's just a representation of the photographer's ideas and thoughts. So that's what I try to do with this project.
That was such a lovely narrative that you have, and the ideas that you're putting forward. I mean, the story that you told about the tree, the stones, the way you have done the framing, so wonderful. Like, listen to you talk about this for like the hours and hours. Like, uh, but coming back to our talk, can you tell us a bit about your association with Zubaan, especially like your experience with cultures?
So initially, when Parismita Sam, she mailed me asking me to be part of this the book that I contributed to. I was very reluctant. I kind of dilly-dallied a bit, and I tried to put her off, and I said, look, I'm very interested in all of that. But she was quite persistent. Persistent in the sense, she was quite sweet about it. She was like, no, please, it'll be really good. So finally I said, okay, fine, let me just do it. Just 3 or 4 photographs, fine. I can, I'll just send it and that's it. And I really was not, I don't know, I think something else was happening at that point that kept my mind, much more occupied with that than what Parismita was telling me about. So a lot of things that she mailed me, it didn't register at that time. And she said on women and work, and it had to do something around work, okay? But even that didn't register with me at that time. Only later on after the book, and it was very easy in the sense I just sent my photographs, and then she was very easy to work with. She was very sweet. She was very helpful. So I really didn't have too much disturbance or hassle. But then the book came out, and in a few of the book launches, I was invited for the talks and all of that, and to show a bit of my work and all of that. So I went around doing that. And much later, actually, it struck me, women and work, because it really resonated with my own present situation at that time. So that association with Zubaan has very, not even productive, but very good for me, because it gave me a certain understanding, It opened my mind to another way of thinking of my own work and my own situation. So yeah, that's been very fruitful for me. And cultures of peace, Zuban's, you're asking me about that, no? Cultures of peace, Zuban. I think it's very, if they can take it forward and continue to do it, I think it's really good, because the one that happened in Dimapur, where I was also a part of, which was in 2018 or 19, I forget, 18, I think. It was really good because they were engaged with, and this is how it should be, I think, they were engaged with a lot of the college students. We want to get the younger people on board to talk about all the topics that Zubaan was trying to engage with at that conflict, all of that. And that is very much conflict, gender, all of that. No, so that is present. It's a very current topic, and that's something that the young people are facing also. And I think it's, yeah, I think in that sense, it's a very applaudable initiative. I think they should just continue with it. Yeah.
I don't know whether you would be comfortable. If you're not comfortable with my next question, like you don't need to answer it. I found a few days back when I was doing a bit of research, I found a piece of paper which is a litigation that maybe a complaint that you had filed while in Delhi. Oh, I think when you earlier also you were talking about the culture shock that you had in Delhi, and then we've been talking about the kind of representations that, and then you know the constructed identities that people have of people from the Northeast. So, and that also that incident also talks a bit about the racial profiling of people from the Northeast. So, would you be comfortable talking about it, or maybe we could just skip the question if you don't mind?
No, 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 definitely. I mean, I will talk about it. It's just funny. Just I really thought I had myself hidden away. I was like, please don't mention my name, don't show my face.
A few years back, I forgot which year, Zubeni and along with two friends, they were going to a restaurant. And while the two other friends were allowed to go to the restaurant, Zubeni was not allowed to go inside. So they had filed a case against a particular restaurant and bar. And so I wanted to ask Penny about this incident and how there's whole racial profiling and stereotyping of people from the Northeast and her experience while being in Delhi.
Yeah, that happened like really long time ago. But yeah, I mean, that was not the first time that I faced that. You go to like nightclubs, you go to bars, clubs, whatever, and then you get this a lot, like, you're not allowed to enter. But that was the first time where the man actually said she does not have the right profile. And I think that kind of knocked my friend back. She was just taken aback. And she, in fact, not even me, but it was she who was like, we really need to do something about this. And yeah, I went along with it because I thought it was important. Of course, we didn't go like pursue it much further because, it was much more bigger than and what was happening. And I didn't want to be in the middle of all of that. I wanted to get the issue out and I wanted people to start talking about it. But I didn't want to be the, torch bearer and just like going in the front and fighting because, um, because that was then, it just becomes, I felt at that time, it would just become about the person. I would be under scrutiny. The issue would be shelved back, like they're pushed back. And the person is the one who scrutiny. So I didn't want that to happen. And that's one of the reasons why we didn't like really pursue it to the end. We had the closed door meeting with these people. The club was called Urban Pint. And we had a meeting with their lawyer, my lawyer, and they apologized. They gave a written apology. All of that happened. And we said, okay, fine. But after that, I think a lot of people started talking about this Northeast discrimination much more because NDTV had, when that was happening, NDTV did this huge, show, like a big show on about it and talk, say our bit and all of that. So yeah, I think in a sense it did do its work, bringing that issue out much more into an open discussion. And what helped was also the social media, because at that time, then social media was just starting out and everybody was on Facebook. And, you could like talk about it and debate about it and just call people for all these protests through Facebook. So all of that became much more easier because of social media also. But for me, what happened was, that was like the accumulation, or that was the explosion of all of these experience that I had in Delhi all these years. And that in that one incident, it just kind of exploded. And strangely, after that incident, I actually made my peace with Delhi, and after that, I just loved living in Delhi. So it has had a very strange reaction. And even now, I miss Delhi so much. And, it's also the way we react when we are faced with this kind of. I'm not saying we are not discriminated. Sure, we are discriminated. I think, to a large extent, we are discriminated. But, it is also because they do not understand our culture. And we are also not willing to engage with them and share with them about our culture much more. When we are attacked or when we face this kind of discrimination, we always go on the extreme reactionary side, no? We just kind of immediately react and like, but we have to really, if you really think about it, we are coming from very opposite cultures, from the food that we eat to the way that we look to the way we live, and everything. We are in very opposite directions, and for a lot of people it's very difficult to um, accept that, I suppose. But I think now things have become much better. I know that things have become, I see that, at least I think it is much better than when I was there in my BA years, my MA years, and when this urban pint happened, this incident at urban pint happened. Those years were horrible, I think, but now much, much, much better, I think. So for me, yeah, it has in fact had a very positive effect. I Instead of becoming so reactionary, I just started to try and be a bit more cool and calm about it. There are a lot of people on the street who are not educated. They just say it because they just want to. Some are just doing it for the heck of doing it. They just want to get on to your case just because, for whatever reason. There is no. It's not that they have such a feeling of animosity and hatred towards us. It's just a power trip for them. So I guess, yeah, that experience did teach me to be much more mellow in that sense in my reaction. But I enjoyed. After that, I just love Delhi.
I asked you this question because in that the piece of document they use the word profiling, you know, profiling, and it struck me like profiling is something that you do with a certain group of people, and that is exactly what the anthropologists and the writers are also doing back home. So it's just like it feel like a lot of this stereotyping discrimination that a lot of people face, I mean outside of their home, then it's just that the venue has shifted. It's just the venue has shifted, but it's the same kind of reaction.
It's very interesting that you said that, because I was very angry because of the word profiling at that time. And I said only terrorists are profiled. But I just want to say that, this profiling that we do, I mean, that the anthropologists have done on us, it's very true that they have done this profiling on us. And today, um, and it's because of that I do the work I do, because this profiling has led to stereotypes. And stereotypes are, in my experience, stereotypes have always been negative. And because of stereotypes, the Nagas were portrayed in such a way that headhunter, primitive, violent, immoral, all of these stereotypes. And it is because of that stereotype we are also looked at and treated the way we are. And it is this kind of stereotype and this image that the mainstream media loves to portray, right? And it is because of that we face this kind of discrimination in the cities, especially because Delhi is where, most of us land up. But, and it is, yeah, so I just want to say it is because of this only that I'm doing what I'm doing, just kind of to break down that stereotype a bit. So I just wanted to just quickly add.
Thank you, Zubeni, for joining us on this talk today. And it's been wonderful chatting with you on the online. I hope, like in the future, we will meet in the future. we will meet face to face and we'll be able to talk more. Uh, while we are leaving, we're just about to leave and the interview, but can you tell us a bit about how you are coping with the pandemic situation in Nagaland, and how are you being able to carry out your photography work despite all the lockdown and the challenges that has been thrown up by the pandemic?
Yeah, so I, well, yeah, initially it was quite difficult because for me, I have to engage to take photographs, and to be locked up like this is very difficult. And so it was very frustrating. But then I thought, okay, because I don't have any social media presence, I have no accounts, I don't have a website. I thought, okay, let me sit and start working on my website. So that's what I've been trying to do, although it's finding it quite difficult. But yeah, I'm trying to do that, put a website together just to put my work, you know. And then the other thing I've been doing is there are two things actually. One is to archive photographs of Nagaland from the 60s, mainly the 70s, 60s, 70s, and maybe a early part of the 80s. And I want to do that because that's a period which I find is most fascinating, because very little is written about that time. And because there was a lot of media shutdown or media controlled by the government, the central government, because of all this, the Naga political situation. That's why media was so controlled. And there were not many news going out from Nagaland, or, you know, so that period kind of fascinates me quite a bit. So I'm just looking at archiving old photographs, asking people to, share the photographs with me if they want to share it from their private albums, and just put a visual history of that period. That's one, and the other one is I'm actually working on, and I've been working on it for a long time. I'm just waiting for my niece to grow up, because I have a little niece, and I have been wanting to do this visual storytelling to her. So the story of Little Red Riding Hood, I wanted to kind of do a visual, yeah, visual, like a photography with her on that. She being Red Riding Hood, my mom being grandma, and all of that, and just wanted to make a storybook for her, like a photo book for her. So I've been working on that for quite some time, but I think this year is the right time to start taking her photograph, because she was quite young. Now she's going to turn 6, and we talk about this quite a bit, and she knows about it, knows about the story, and she's quite um, willing to do it. So yeah, I'm looking to do that maybe this month or December, this cooler months, and just taking a lot of my niece's photos. Yeah, which is actually quite new for me, because I don't take. It's very difficult for me to take photos of people that I know, my family, because it's very intimate, and I don't know how to negotiate that space, between the intimate space and the workspace. So with her, I'm just trying to like find that in the photograph, and then of course just staying home, taking care of my mom, because my dad passed away, and then I had to come back and just take care of her. So yeah, those are the kind of things that's keeping me occupied, mostly home stuffs. Very
Sounds
woman.
lovely. Sounds lovely. We're waiting for the photo book about your niece to come out. But the pandemic, coming back to the pandemic, how do you think it has, like, affected the communities that you have worked with and engaged with?
Initially, because the first 2 months, I think 3 months was a total lockdown. But the people that I work with are mostly up in the hills, in the villages. So for them, well, they couldn't go to their fields. Yes, that was one. I think they were stopped from going, and I think they were given free rations by the government on all of that. So I think it was difficult initially. Life for them is actually quite back to normal. They go to the fields, they work in the fields, they come back. they just don't travel too much, coming to town and all of that. They don't do that much traveling. A few There were a few scares in the villages because a few of the city folks came back, from back, especially Bangalore, Bombay, Hyderabad, wherever they were working, and they went back to their villages. So in those times, I think they had a few scares. So they were all quarantined. And how the villages are like. Anything that is new, anything that is unknown is very scary. Even for us, it is very scary. So for them, it was doubly scary, and they were being extra vigilant. But now I think life has kind of gone back to the norm, to almost being a normal life for them, to almost living a normal life for them. It's actually in the towns which are much more. It's much more uncertain, I would say. Like, a lot of the infected cases are happening in the towns. Deaths are also happening mostly in the towns. So, there are days and weeks when you don't know anything, you feel that life is kind of going back to normal. Then suddenly you hear of somebody who died, somebody who that is infected, and then that becomes a reality. And that once again, you become much more cautious. So all of that, yeah. So it's been, I don't know, it's just very unreal, the entire situation. So,
Yeah,
and
it
we're
has
just
been.
trying to help the community as much as possible by just buying their local products, whatever they bring send from the village to the markets. That's the only way, because otherwise, we aren't traveling much. Not at all, actually. We aren't traveling. So we're just trying to, as much as possible, buy local products.
Yeah, thank you, Jubeni. Yeah, it has been really bad times for people all over the world, especially for those, living in small isolated communities also. Um, Thank you, Jubeni, for joining us for this wonderful talk today, and we're really looking forward to meet you in person. And I really, really, really appreciate that you have been sharing all your views, the stories with such frankness and honesty. Thank you so much.